Hi, my name is Julie Barber, and I'm a graduate student at Liberty University Online. For this assignment, I had a group discussion about personal safety while walking and running. The group met for an hour on Wednesday, October the 3rd at noon in one of my company's large meeting rooms. I arrived 10 minutes prior to the start of the meeting so that I could get it set up and arrange the chairs in a circular formation, creating that inviting and personal environment. I also wrote the meeting guidelines on a whiteboard that was in the room so that they would be visible the entire time. There were 12 people in attendance, excluding myself, and as expected, they were all female. They were all co-workers of mine, and there was no co-leader. I selected this topic because of my experience and passion about personal safety while walking and running. A few months ago, I was stalked by an individual while walking through downtown with a coworker during a morning break. I found comfort in sharing my feelings and fears about that situation with others. And by leading this group, I wanted to give others at work a safe place to talk through their own similar experiences and learn ways to prepare and deal with this type of event. The group dynamics, content, and process of this meeting. As people arrived, I stood and welcomed them to the room and let them know they could take any open chair. Some people came in with friends and some came alone. There were individuals who looked nervous about attending and others chatted comfortably. By observing this initial behavior, it clued me in who may be quiet and introverted, where I would need to use drawing out, or people who were extroverted and talkative, where I may need to use cutting off. Once everyone was settled, I sat with them in the circle and welcomed them to the group. I asked them to take a moment of silence and reflection and look around, observe their surroundings, pray if they were so inclined, and get acquainted with the room, each other, and the atmosphere. After the moment of silence and reflection, I introduced myself and my role at the company, and also my role as the group leader. I made it clear we were there to discuss the topic of personal safety while running and walking, and I wanted to make sure that they focused on that the entire meeting. I also let them know if there was anyone who felt they may need additional professional counseling, I strongly encouraged them to do so. Then I went into reviewing the guidelines with the group and showing them where they were on the whiteboard. Be present and mindful, listen with an open mind, respect others' stories, actively participate, and keep what is said during the meetings in the group. I then moved into check-in and icebreaker, where I ask everyone to share a song or movie title that best describes their running and walking experience. I let the group decide who would go first, asking for a volunteer to begin, and so on until everyone had responded. Observing how eager or not members were to share their thoughts and feelings, again gave me an idea of who I would need to use those drawing out techniques with. I then moved into the subject tool part of the meeting. I provided the subject, be aware of your surroundings, and the tool, memory recall. I did a brief description of the activity just to kickstart it. So telling them instead of putting in earbuds and zoning out in music, pay attention to the people that are passing you and your surroundings, vehicles, those types of things as you're out and about. Then I shared my own experience and explained how using those skills helped me describe the stalker precisely to a T to the authorities. I think sharing that shows my emotional investment and my dedication to the group. As I talked, I made sure to make eye contact with different members in the group and make sure that everyone was engaged in understanding the content. Since the amount of attendees was an even number, it made using a dyad rather easy, so that's what I did. I asked people to turn to their neighbor and put their backs to the person on the other side of them. And the activity was for them to describe the person that was behind them to the other person. During the activity, I moved around the room, making sure that the dyads stayed on task and were focused on the assignment. One pair seemed to have trouble kicking off the conversation. They felt a little awkward, I suppose, so I used a question to deepen their conversation. Could you describe hair color, length, style? When everyone seemed to be wrapping up, I had them move their chairs back to center for a response time. I asked the volunteers to share what they found easy, difficult, important about the exercise. As people responded, I used linking, pointing out similarities and differences between responses, getting them to talk to each other about what those similarities and differences were. I tried to let the conversation evolve organically, prompting a time or two with questions such as, how can you apply this skill while running? After the activity, I handed out a printout of the subject and tools so they could take it with them. Then we moved into checkout. During this time, I asked everyone to share one key takeaway and one thing they would practice or use before the next meeting. Hopefully, having a task for the next meeting will ensure that participants use what they learn and think about what we talked about outside of the meeting. After everyone shared, I closed the meeting by thanking them again and reminding them of the next meeting. Self-assessment. Overall, I think I did okay facilitating the meeting. I'm very talkative and I'm an extroverted person. So during group sharing and discussion, I found it difficult to let the conversation evolve naturally from group member to group member without interrupting too much. Also, I found it difficult to keep track of how much each person shared. So I think that over time and with practice, both of those will get easier. Conclusion and application. The highlight of the group was hearing from the participants afterwards that it was helpful for them and that they learned something new. Making sure that the conversation is focused so that we don't run low on time at the end of the meeting for checkout for each person is super important, especially when you have 12 or more attendees. Everyone should have an opportunity to share during checkout. So that's something I'm going to have to learn to adjust for depending on how many people are there. Concluding thought, I'll wrap up with James 1:19. Wherefore, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath. As a leader, listening is the key to a successful group growth, cohesion, and productivity.